So the idea of like crypto AI is really to be a balancing force, a counter force to this very centralizing force of AI, right? Where basically crypto and blockchain introduces like openness, transparency, decentralization, and through giving people ownership around their data, around their compute, around AI models is also very democratizing and allows more people to participate and capture the upside from this sort of like AI wave.
All right, guys, welcome to Max Crypto Space news series, where we found the most impactful builders and researchers in the crypto space and try to pick their brain and try to see how they see the market, how they do researches, and see if we can get some alpha from them. Today we have Teng Yan. His brand is called Chain of Thoughts, and he's doing mainly crypto AI researches. So welcome, Teng.
Hey, Max, I'm glad to be here and excited to talk about some crypto AI today.
Yeah, you're very active on Twitter space recently. So tell us more about yourself. What leads you to the crypto market? What's your professional background?
Yeah, so I actually come from a pretty interesting and varied sort of like personal like career history. So I actually studied medicine back in university, and I actually worked as a clinician in the hospitals for several years, mostly training in diagnostic radiology. And then in 2015, I actually met a business partner, and we had the opportunity to start a healthcare AI company. And basically we were working with clinical data and using like AI tools to be able to help like clinicians like identify patients with disease quicker, as well as pharmaceutical companies to sort of like improve their sort of like drug development process. And so I spent about 6 years in this healthcare AI company running one of our lines of businesses. And it was actually during this time, I think it was like in 2017, I remember like during our office one day, like everybody, all of our engineers were trading these like coins on Binance, like these ICO tokens. And I was like, hey guys, like, why isn't anybody doing any work? And that's how I first knew about like Bitcoin and Ethereum, but I didn't really think much about it. It was mostly like speculative. And it was only in 2020 where I actually started going down the rabbit hole of like what was going on in the blockchain space. And I was very fascinated with the ideas of this. And I knew that I needed to sort of like align myself with what was going on in crypto. So I left my startup after 6 years, went to work with Delphi Digital, which is basically a research consulting and venture company that's focused entirely on crypto. I led our key and consumer focused like research team for about 2.5 years. But in the earlier part of this year, I left Delphi, and the main reason was I wanted to focus my time entirely on AI, because I saw that what was happening in the space was actually going exponential, right? The technology, the development with ChatGPT and all these AI models that are out there. And I wanted to spend all my time learning as much as I could about AI with a view both from an investment point of view, how can I identify opportunities and ride this AI wave, but also to sort of like lay the foundations for potentially a future startup in the AI space that I will kind of do. And that led me down the whole rabbit hole of like crypto AI. And there were so many interesting like teams and projects that were building interesting things and trying different sort of like business models in it. And I just started to write a little bit about it on Chain of Thought. And from there, I had actually a lot of people reach out to me from VCs, liquid fund managers, startups who were very interested in the crypto AI space. And I knew that, okay, there's something there. There's a lot of latent interest, people who want to know what's going on in crypto AI, and just decided to sort of like double down on this. And right now, I'm full-time just running Chain of Thought as a research firm that's focused on crypto AI.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a very interesting background you have over there. So Delphi, as a NFT researcher, just out of curiosity, did you choose to be an NFT researcher at the time, or did they need an NFT researcher? And how do you see any kind of like overlap between the two?
Yeah. So I think when I joined Delphi, it was actually the time where we're just heading into the sort of like NFT mania. And I personally was also very excited about like what was going on in NFTs. Like, I think gaming is very interesting. I'm a casual gamer. I like what was going on in the trading and collectible side of things. I used to collect a lot of like trading cards like Magic the Gathering and such. And it kind of like clicked very closely with me, like what was going on in NFTs. And I was actually very excited for the technology to be able to bring in a lot more people that are not typically in the crypto space, to understand more about blockchain, to understand more about crypto. I think one thing I did realize about NFTs like over the last 2 years is that NFTs are working with an industry that is pretty much very mature and incumbent and dominated by a lot of big players. And for example, these would be things like entertainment, right? NFTs often try to create like new IP around movies, around like games, and this is not so easy to disrupt an incumbent industry like that. So I still think that there is a very strong promise in terms of what NFTs can offer in terms of like digital ownership, but this promise is going to take a lot longer to play out. And it's probably going to be many years before we see NFTs being used in a very wide fashion by all of these like different incumbents of like entertainment sort of like companies. And I think that's one of the reasons why I also decided that, hey, you know, what's happening in AI is moving at a much faster pace. And this is, to me, very intellectually interesting. And I wanted to just go all into this.
Yeah. And to be honest, I have seen some protocols working on the IP field as well, like Story Protocol, which is probably, let's save it for another session. So coming back to crypto AI, I want to hear your thoughts. And can you tell us, like, to the viewers or the audience in simple terms, what do you think crypto AI is and how do you look at it overall?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you think about this, like crypto AI is, it's basically crypto and AI, and then we have sort of like mashed it together and we just call it crypto AI. And crypto and AI are both like very interesting, bleeding edge technologies today, right? These are probably the two biggest technology trends that we have in this past couple of years or so. And the reason why we just call it crypto AI today is because, like, honestly, I think nobody really knows what is going to come out of crypto AI, what are going to be the actual use cases, what are going to be the actual commercial products. But we know because like these technology trends are so powerful, something magical will kind of like happen in the intersection of this sort of like crypto AI space. So that's my sort of like high level mental model. We're just using crypto AI as a catch-all term for things that have some form of like intersection between like the trend of AI as well as the trend of crypto. Very broadly, I think like there are two like main ways you can sort of like categorize this. Like, one is how can we use like AI to actually improve like crypto, for example, improving the user experience of like people interacting with the blockchain. And you know, like today you have to sort of like create your wallet, manage your seed phrase. Like if you want to make a transaction, you have to find the right pool. You go to Uniswap, you swap your tokens. So there is a lot of friction in it. But in the future, I do imagine that a lot of these transactions will definitely be improved by AI. I can just tell the AI that, hey, I just want to swap this tokens for this. It goes out there and find the best exchange, does everything for me, and I don't need to do a single thing in terms of like signing multiple different transactions and stuff. So I think that's one thing, is going to improve the way that people interact with blockchain and crypto products. But the other part, which I think personally is much more exciting and very interesting for me, is how crypto can actually make AI better. And I think within this sector, and I think we'll probably talk a lot more about this as we go through this conversation, is are there ways that we can use blockchain, we can use like tokens to actually make better AI than what is already going out there without the crypto sort of like space? And finding those use cases, I think is really where the opportunity is going to be.
Right. But apparently there's a lot of things happening right now in the crypto AI space. There are decentralized compute, there are AI agents, there are privacies. How do you categorize the whole crypto AI space or narratives right now?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this for a while, and it was very triggered as I started to write out my crypto AI thesis, which I published like just a week ago. But I would say there are probably like 5 major buckets in terms of how I think about the different like subsectors like within the crypto AI space. The first very big bucket is around decentralized compute. And this includes like GPU marketplaces. This includes like decentralized training of AI models, as well as like decentralized inference. I think this is a very important subsector, because if you think about like any AI startup, the most important things that you need is compute, right? Anything that you need to do, you need to have the access to like GPUs to be able to do it. And any crypto AI project that is doing something in AI and wants to truly be decentralized, it needs to have access to decentralized compute. It shouldn't be using, for example, AWS, where it will be a central point of failure. If it decides that it doesn't want you on their network and kicks you out, then your whole protocol is pretty much like dead and useless, right? So basically, decentralized networks and crypto AI projects will need to have access to like decentralized compute in order to do this. And so there are a number of these like compute marketplaces like Hyperbolic, IONET, Akash, Akash, correct. Like quite a few of these are building this decentralized compute network. And then one step further down from decentralized compute is what do you use this compute for, right? And today there are two main things. One is training and second is inference. I'm actually very excited about like decentralized training. I feel like, if you think about this, decentralized training is being able to train very important, maybe even frontier level AI models in a way that doesn't involve like a centralized like data centers. If you look at what like OpenAI, XAI, which is Elon Musk like AI startup, they are building like very, very big data centers. Like Elon Musk is building this like 200,000 like H100 GPU cluster somewhere in the US. So, and their idea is that, okay, the more bigger the data center, the better and faster I'll be able to train the next generation models. But decentralized training is the idea where actually, if you look at us, every one of us in our homes, we have a computer, right? And if we all can contribute our computers to the training of AI, and if there are like, how many people are there who are on the internet? Maybe 2 billion people in this planet, right? And then if we all contribute our power to train an AI model, we can actually produce much better and faster and maybe produce these AI models in a cheaper way. And if we can give everyone ownership around this AI model that's trained in this distributed manner, I think it's a very sexy and very interesting idea. Because I personally don't want the most powerful technology in this world to be fully controlled by some of these very centralized entities, which are basically the big tech companies like your Googles, your Metas. And I feel like that's not the future that I kind of want to live in. So that's one of the 5 categories, and I can sort of like keep going on that. I think the next one that I think about is data networks. So if you think about like after compute, what else you need to train an AI model is going to be data. And today, like most of our AI models are trained on all of the internet data, right? So that's already been done. So you're not going to get a lot of like improvements in AI models using the current existing internet data. I think the idea of like using crypto economic models or token incentives to bootstrap a very powerful data network, I think it's a very sexy idea, right? Basically, the idea is that by giving people incentives, you can incentivize them to contribute their own personal data in a way that works. So for example, like one data network that I saw recently was like this 23andMe DAO, which is basically a data DAO that is built on the Vana protocol, which is basically a protocol for data DAOs. And basically they're trying to aggregate like everybody's like genetic data. So if you had a genetic test that was done at 23andMe, you can sort of export your data and contribute this to the 23andMe sort of like data DAO. And basically like once they have a good number of people who have contributed that information, these people will also get a share of like tokens within this network to show that they have ownership, and they can sort of like collectively decide how to govern this network. They can decide who they want to share this information with, and they can also share the revenue and rewards for people actually using this genetic data in their sort of like research and other kinds of work. So I think the ability of like crypto to bootstrap new kinds of data and even like coordinate the existing data that's out there, I think is a very powerful tool for training the next generation of sort of like AI models. And then a very big third category, which is something that I'm personally still sort of like trying to wrap my head around, is around AI agents. And I think we can kind of like see where the future is headed to, right? Where these tools are getting more and more powerful. Soon they are going to be autonomous, where they are able to also sort of like take actions on their own. I think the recent like Strawberry 01 from OpenAI has shown AI can actually be much better in reasoning and planning than it was before. So I think we're seeing a lot of breakthroughs in that. And that signifies that this future where the world will be run by a billion like AI agents and everything that we do will be done by an AI agent. I think that future is actually coming much sooner than many people expect. Say, for example, I want to book a holiday like to Japan, right? All I have to do is just tell the agent when I'm going, what are my interests, and it'll go out there, find me the best hotel, do all the bookings for me, and all I have to do is just get on the plane, right? So I think that's the kind of future that we're sort of seeing. The question in my head is, where does sort of like crypto and blockchain come into this? I think there are many different ways. I think one is that there are going to be very many like sort of like financial use cases be built from AI agents. And that is basically, you have like AI hedge funds. You're going to have like AI agents that are able to do automatic optimization of yield. There are going to be many cool things done in the DeFi space, I think, like using like some of these like on-chain agents. And then I also believe that as AI agents start to become very widely used, we're going to have like what we call like a sort of like multi-agent sort of like future, where we're not going to have a single agent that is just good at doing every single thing that we want to do, but we're going to have like multiple different specialist agents. Right. For example, an agent that is good at travel bookings, there's an agent that is good at scheduling, right? And all of these different agents are going to be working together. And to me, I think the most natural way for like these agents to sort of like communicate and work together is actually on the blockchain. Because AI agents, at the end of the day, they are just code, right? And basically blockchain as well as code. But blockchains actually provide a certain level of constraints in terms of like what AI agents can do that actually stems from running wild or turning rogue, because AI sometimes they have hallucinates and it creates a lot of different problems. I do see a lot of like payments between agents as well going to be happening in the blockchain, just because the blockchain is such a great way for facilitating a lot of sort of like micro payments between AI agents that are doing different kinds of work. So I think that whole space is also something that's very exciting and sexy for me. And then like maybe just two more, I'll just briefly mention them, but I won't go into too much detail yet unless you want to explore them. It's around like generative AI consumer apps that use crypto in some way. I think that's pretty interesting to see. It's a new category of like consumer apps that we haven't sort of like seen before. A lot of things revolve around AI companions. Some is around like gaming, where they're like automated sort of like NPCs that actually are more interactive than your sort of very static in-game like characters. So I think that consumer AI space is also growing pretty fast. And then the last one is really around like verifiable inference. How do we make sure that when we use an AI model, it's actually the right AI model, is actually giving us the right outputs, it's not subject to certain sort of like biasness. I think the trustlessness nature of the blockchain, where it's open and transparent, is one way we can ensure that we don't get manipulated by what's going on in the AI space, especially by the central actors on a lot of the AI tools today. So in my mind, these are the sort of like 5 very broad and very big categories that I sort of like think about when I think about crypto AI.
Yeah, so a lot of things. I think one of the most asked questions from the audience would be, why do we need crypto AI? Like, what's the main value proposition that we wanted to put crypto and AI together, and how does it differ from the competition of centralized AI like Google or OpenAI? Like, what's the main like moat? What is the main competitive advantage of crypto AI?
Yeah, no, Mason, that's a very good question, and it's actually the question like every time I like speak with like a crypto AI like founder, that's also the question I usually ask. And like, why are they using the blockchain? Why are they using crypto? And the answers, when they give me an answer, is usually quite telling about like what their motivations are around this. So I would say that there are a few different levels we can kind of look at this in terms of like why crypto is important for AI. I think firstly, it's philosophical and moral angle, right? If we look at the world today, like AI is a very centralizing technology. Like the only people who can actually create AI models are those that have a lot of resources in terms of like compute, in terms of like cash. And that's why you see only the big tech companies are actually the ones that are actually creating all of these like frontier models. So the idea of like crypto AI is really to be a balancing force, a counter force to this very centralizing force of AI, right? Where basically crypto and blockchain introduces like openness, transparency, decentralization, and through giving people ownership around their data, around their compute, around AI models is also very democratizing and allows more people to participate and capture the upside from this sort of like AI wave. So I think that's a very raw philosophical and values argument. And I think like that's probably one of the main reasons that draws people into the crypto AI space. This belief that we need to build something in a decentralized way and not just leave it to the centralized entities to do it. And I think that's a very good motivation for many of the founders out there. I think on a more practical sort of like basis, there are a few interesting things that like crypto offers AI. And if I were to sort of like sum it up, I think the most important thing is the ability to use tokens like in crypto and bring tokens into AI. Because what I've come to realize in my many years like in the crypto space is that there are only a few advantages that crypto naturally has. And one of that very big advantage is permissionless capital formation, right? The ability for anybody who's out there, no matter where you are in the world, no matter what your background, to basically launch a token, right? And through a token, you can actually raise funds from people, investors. You can get people to sort of like buy your token. You can give your tokens out to your community, and they can sort of like get a revenue share from whatever product you're sort of like building. So the ability of like tokens to sort of like be a new way of like fundraising for AI experiments, I think is very cool and very interesting, right? Especially experiments that are probably not the kind that is easily funded by VCs, right? Who have a certain kind of like projects that they kind of like fund. But if you are a researcher in a university that's out there and you have a very cool idea, but you just don't have the resources, you don't have the money to buy the compute that's needed to execute on this, I think crypto offers a very interesting way of like fundraising and developing like new business models around this so that your experiment can actually sort of like work. So I think that is one like very sort of like important factor, the ability of anybody to sort of like launch an experiment that's out there. And then I think the second is that I feel that for AI to really make a very big difference like to humanity in a good way and not in a sort of like dystopian way, we need to support the open source movement, right? So basically, if you look at some of the major AI models that are out there, like CoT, like OpenAI's like GPT, all of these are closed source AI models, right? So none of us have access to like how it works. We don't know what actually goes on behind the scenes. But then like we have companies like Meta who releases like Llama 3, which is like an open source AI model. But the question in my head is that, how we can't just keep relying on like Meta to be releasing these very expensive to train like open source models for us. And so the open source community on its own, there's a lot of resources. There are a lot of very smart people out there in universities, in smaller research labs, even like just sort of like independent like AI enthusiasts who are doing their own stuff and experiments at home. And crypto provides a way for the open source movement to succeed, right? Basically by providing the right kind of incentives for people to contribute their efforts, contribute their data in terms of like improving these models. Because I think like if you just rely on, say, the altruism of the open source community or people to spend their time to build this without perhaps any incentives or rewards, I think then that development is going to be a bit slower and it's going to be hard to see open source really catch up or at least follow very closely behind like what's happening in the closed source movement. So I think these are sort of like my thoughts on why AI is such an essential and critical part for getting to this very bright like future for AI that I hope to kind of like see in the coming years.
Great explanation. And except all those good things, do you see any like significant challenges or limitation for crypto AI in the following few years of development?
Yeah, there's going to be a lot. Like I think honestly, from everything I've seen, the crypto AI space is it's a very nascent, it's a very new space. Like there's a lot that's happening out there. I think firstly is that there is a lot of like noise, right? Almost everyone's incorporating AI into their product in some way. And within the space, you always have to be able to separate the people who are actually building real and useful technology from the people who are more of like I guess are very good marketers, very good people in terms of like crafting a narrative, but actually there isn't a lot of technology. Maybe behind the scenes is just a wrapper of like ChatGPT that's sort of out there, right? So I think like there is just a whole spectrum of like teams and people within the sort of like crypto AI space, and people who are following will just kind of have to discern themselves like which ones are the sort of like good teams. I think second challenge I've seen is that because it's such early days, most of crypto AI is very infrastructure heavy. It's very infrastructure focused, building the tooling, building the networks that's required for crypto AI to really flourish. Say, for example, like AI agents today, right? While the idea is very cool and very sexy, today it's very hard to build an AI agent that's functioning on the blockchain just because there's no tools that actually allows you to do that in a simple way. And there's also the current blockchains like Ethereum and Solana, they're not naturally geared up to support the kind of like high volume transactions that AI agents like sort of need to do, right? And using AI is pretty computationally incentive. So with a lot of these infrastructure developments, I feel like many teams out there are building something, but they're kind of like not very good at communicating like what they're actually building. So very often, when I look at the crypto AI startups like website, I spend like 15 minutes just going through what they're doing, but at the end of it, I still have no idea exactly what is going on, right? So I think that's one of the very big challenge. It's very hard to understand what teams are doing, and teams naturally are just, because they're very technically heavy, often they're not the best at sort of like product marketing and helping people understand what they're trying to do. So that's also part of like what I'm trying to do with Chain of Thought, to really bring that out to more people, help them understand like what exactly is the essence of a particular sort of like crypto AI project. And then I think the final element, which is a pretty big challenge, I would say, for many teams who are building in crypto AI, is that to really succeed in the space, I believe that you have to have expertise in not just AI, but also in crypto, and vice versa, right? So if you have very strong crypto expertise, but you don't have any real like Web2 AI expertise, then I think you're also not going to succeed. Commonly, I see more of the former, where there are a lot of teams with very smart people, like for example, like AI researchers, professors like from universities. They are starting something in crypto AI, but the team often may not have a lot of like direct crypto experience. And you've been in the space for a while. Crypto is a very weird beast, right? It functions in very weird ways. How people think about tokens, how you support like token prices, how you generate like story and narrative to make people excited. It's a very different kind of like skill set than people are used to in a sort of like traditional way, right? So you have to be able to also navigate the sort of like crypto space in a very, and there are a lot of minefields in crypto that these teams will have to sort of like work through. So I would say like it's a pretty Herculean challenge like for all of these like crypto AI teams, but I'm definitely rooting and for them to sort of like succeed, and I want to support them in the best way I can.
Yeah, so crypto AI gives me a feeling of like the 2019 DeFi space, where we're still kind of working out like the liquidity mining, like the 2-token pool, and then like how you do swap, and then impermanent loss. Remember that? So like DeFi, we had a few challenges in DeFi. I would say DeFi right now is in a pretty stable stage that with innovations, and crypto AI right now is just limited resources to get the 90% of the audience that doesn't know crypto and doesn't know AI to understand what they're building. So I think Chain of Thought is in that way is very, very valuable. So yeah, great. Thanks for sharing that. All right, so let's dive into the applications. Done with the crypto AI kind of top level overview. Is there any interesting projects you're eyeing right now, like you're very excited about? Can you share like one or two?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a lot that is pretty interesting. I mean, I'll just name a few that sort of like stand out because maybe it's just some attention bias that I've been looking at them like more recently. So for example, one is like OLAS, and OLAS is basically like autonomous, which is sort of like rebranded and now it's just called OLAS. So this is a project that is focused entirely on building like AI agent economies. And it's very interesting. It was launched like actually in the later part of like last year. And it also has a token that's live. So, the token price went parabolic in the early part of this year as everybody was speculating around AI, but since it's come down quite a little bit, we spent quite a bit of time like looking into OLAS like these past 2 weeks or so. And I think what they're building is pretty It's pretty interesting because basically they have a framework for basically building like AI agents that function on chain, but also have a lot of their components that actually happens like off chain. And they're building for this like multi-agent world that I outlined earlier, where how do you have like different agents coordinate with each other? How do you have like different agents like come to a consensus with each other? That's what the sort of like OLA sort of like network allows these agents to do. I think it's still relatively early days. The agent use cases are still sort of like being built out. They have like a prediction markets like agent right now that people can use. They can actually operate this agent and stake their OLAs to get like some return, which is pretty good right now. It's like 130%, I think, APY for staking and running this like agent. Yeah, so I think that's one. I'll be very excited to see like more of these like AI agent use cases sort of like come to fruition in the next couple of months. Another one that that's really like top of my mind is like Hyperbolic Labs. So Hyperbolic is building all of the infrastructure that's necessary to support a decentralized sort of like AI future. So they have like a decentralized like GPU marketplace that works. They actually have an inference layer, and I think it's actually pretty cool. Actually, I use it a fair bit because you can actually go on their site. You can actually run some of these like AI models to generate like images, like stable diffusion and flux, like for a very, very low cost, like almost free on their servers. So I've been using it a lot to sort of like generate images. So they actually have gotten a lot of traction, right? So there's a lot of like users using it. I think I saw a tweet from them that they have like hit like more than 1 billion like tokens like being used on their network so far. And I've actually talked to the team as well. I think they are very smart people and they're building something really interesting in the space. So something that I think like is worth like sort of like looking out for. I think another one that's probably like sort of like top of mind for many people is also like Grass Network. So Grass is the one where basically you can actually run this tool on your computer as a sort of like Chrome extension. And basically what it does is that it just takes a very small part of your internet bandwidth and uses that to sort of like scrape the internet for data. And so what it does is that with over 1 million people who are actually using this right now, they're actually able to sort of like put together an almost like real-time database of the internet that can actually be used for training like AI models. And that's very interesting because like a lot of like the data sources that is used to train AI models, they're usually outdated, they're usually several months like old, and being able to feed an AI model with fresh data like on a constant basis, I think that's very cool. And the way they do it is because you can't just like scrape data by having a few very powerful computers, because your IP address is going to be blocked by whoever's like running this website. But because like Grass uses like 1 million people's like home computers to do it, it's impossible to block all these different IP addresses.
Right.
So they are very much like building up this sort of like very powerful like data tool, which I think is going to be very exciting. I think even more exciting is also I think they are sort of like gearing up for their token generation event as well in the coming weeks. And I think that's something that many people will be sort of like watching out for.
Yeah, I like it. And another project I want to bring up is called Bittensor, which you probably are already familiar with. I gotta be honest, Bittensor is the project that led me to crypto AI narrative. And I've been watching that project for a while. I even wrote a research report on there. And I discovered that you actually wrote one as well, which you kind of discovered or like listed a few challenges for Bittensor project. Can you tell us more about your view to the project, and has your view changed at all? I think you wrote the report 2 months ago, and then now it has been 45 something subnets now, and covers like decentralized training, decentralized compute, and everything. So tell us more about Bittensor.
Yeah, it's really interesting when you say that like Bittensor was the one that brought you in the crypto AI space, because that sort of like fits in my idea that I think like Bittensor is going to be sort of like the gateway drug for people to understand more about crypto AI, just because it's such a fascinating sort of like project to sort of like look at. And every time I talk to people about Bittensor, it's definitely a very polarizing project. I have a lot of people who are like die-hard fanatics, and they believe everything should be built on Bittensor. And then there are also people who like just it's purely vaporware. There's nothing going on that's very of substantial like interest. Like the network doesn't make sense at all. It's not going to solve like work. So it's very interesting to see like people have these like polarizing views around this. So I think for me, like personally, I started to learn about Bittensor, like not the earliest, but relatively early, like sometime in the middle part of like last year, in 2023. And at the time, I didn't really understand it fully, but I thought like what they were actually trying to do in terms of having that incentive network for AI was actually pretty interesting. And that was while I was still at Delphi as well. And actually, I wrote a little bit about Bittensor within the Delphi research sort of like space as well. And then I think in the earlier part of this year, and probably the report that you sort of like mentioned, I started looking a little bit more and thinking a little bit more about like the token economics around Bittensor. And I think, there are definitely some challenges around that because like there is a fair amount of like inflation that's happening for POW, which is basically the Bittensor token. I think every day there is 7,200 POW that's basically emitted as rewards to people. And so if you look at the current price of POW, which is like 560 today, there's about like almost $4 million that's basically emitted of potential sell pressure that's happening like every single day, right? And in a month, there's 120 million of sell pressure. So that makes it a very challenging economic model to sort of like have. And with that, I was a little hesitant about Bittensor, and that was probably like in April of this year. But actually since then, I think I've shifted my views a fair bit, and I'm pretty excited about where Bittensor is going. And this is really for a few reasons. I think one is that Bittensor has shown that it's been able to build a community that is extremely diehard, right? It's almost like a cult. And I think one thing that we know in like the crypto space is that you never fade cults, right? Because these people are just going to be the strongest hands. They're going to be shilling to everybody, and they're not going to sell their tokens at any point in time. So I think to be able to build and gather around this community of diehard fanatics, and these are not just like degens that are out there. There's a lot of like very smart people. Some of them are like researchers from some of the top like AI labs. They are participating in Bittensor, outside of their working hours. The amount of like mind space and talent that Bittensor has been able to draw together, I think it's quite amazing. Especially like even in recent weeks, I've seen like a lot of like interest from the sort of like Web2 space, like people who are not typically into crypto but are working in tech. I've seen them starting to talk about Bittensor. I saw Bittensor also had a presentation at like one of like Google's like, events as well. Yep. Yeah, so that was pretty cool to sort of like see around that. So I think what Bittensor is at a very high level is a way of funding a lot of like AI experiments. So I think today there are like 52 different subnets. They're all doing different things in the AI space. And the token sort of like acts as an incentive to fund these subnets and help them find like ways to bring in like AI talent as well as the best AI models to solve a very specific problem. And my hope is that like one or two at least of these like experiments that's going on in these subnets actually become this sort of like killer use case, like for crypto AI. It could be a commercially viable use case. It could be a very interesting consumer app. I don't really know about it, but basically because the token price is still relatively high, it has given it a lot of like tailwinds and resources to fund all of these like AI experiments. And I'll be looking to see like which ones of these actually get sufficient traction. So I think to summarize, I'm pretty fascinated by what Bittensor has been able to do. It was in the right space in the right time, and I'm also watching very closely like what really comes out of this, because I think when you put a lot of smart people together, something magical and cool always sort of like comes out of that, at least in my own experience.
I do agree with you on the token supply. Last time when I calculated, it was like 30% inflation rate or something. And there are discussion in Twitter or different spaces about like how much, I feel like it's a one or nothing kind of approach. Like if you can use that amount of token supply to kind of spin the flywheel to get Bittensor together and kind of producing actual value added products, then yeah, for sure. But then if the token supply is just going to be dumped into centralized exchange and kind of pull down the token price and making the incentive mechanism not working anymore, then it's like a double-sided blade, right? So yeah, very interesting.
It's very like I think those are great points, because I think crypto has always been a very reflexive sort of like system, right? Because right now the token price is doing relatively well. It draws in a lot of people, and basically I think Bittensor needs to really capitalize on these like tailwinds to really make something cool out of it. If like in the next like 6 months or 9 months it starts to stall out, there's nothing cool that comes out of this, then people will start to sell their tokens, and then it gets into a sort of like downward spiral around like confidence and interest in token as well. So I think that's the crazy thing about like crypto. Things just can shift like very quickly. But with the current tailwinds that Bittensor has in terms of like attention, I really hope is able to make something like super cool out of that. And I believe it will.
And one of the challenges you mentioned was it's hard to distribute like allocate token percentage with different subnets doing different things. Like you have subnet X doing like medical training, and you have subnet Y doing like trading. Like how do you allocate? How do you properly allocate those token percentage into like those supply? And with the dynamic Tau coming, I think it'll be interesting to see how that actually turns out, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's probably the biggest upgrade that everyone's waiting for in terms of like on Bittensor, the detail. I also do hope that the team will be very intentional and cautious in sort of like implementing this, because it's a pretty big change in terms of like how you think about like allocating like weights among different subnets.
Yeah.
It can be a little bit tricky as well, right? Because like if you leave it to the users to sort of like decide, there are ways that users can be biased. Maybe users may not allocate the resources in the best way. I know there's always some kind of like tension between like different subnets as well, right? Especially because they're all getting different amounts of the emission on a daily basis also. But I think if implemented properly, it could mitigate some of these like different risks around like valuing the different outputs of the subnets and shift that on to the community to sort of like decide, and making it a truly sort of like decentralized network.
Yeah, totally agreed. All right, thanks for sharing that, Bittensor. I want to kind of jump right out to the application side now. Like, tell us more if the audience wants to know about crypto AI. If they're new to the whole thesis, where can they find more resources? What do you recommend?
Yeah, so that's something that I found to be a very common problem, even for myself as well. When I was first starting to explore the crypto AI space, what do I actually start looking at, right? There's just so many things that are sort of like out there, and it's very difficult to figure out where I should be looking at. So what I did was I actually put together a crypto AI primer, and it's at like primer.chainofthought.xyz. And basically what I do is that I've actually compiled all the resources and readings that I found to be the most useful in my own personal understanding of crypto AI. And I have sort of like put all of the links within this sort of like crypto AI primer. So I think if you are new and you want to learn a little bit more about the crypto AI space and start to understand a bit more, I think if you just spend a couple of days like reading the articles that I've sort of listed in the primer, I think by the end of that, you'll come up with a very decent understanding of what the space is about. Probably better than say 90 or 95% of people who haven't even done any reading on that. So I think that's probably one good place to start. The other thing that I would sort of like recommend is that besides just learning about crypto AI, is that to also understand a bit about just how AI works, like how does the transformers sort of like work. There are a few like very good courses on like Coursera that walks through like for example, when you type prompt into ChatGPT, what actually goes on behind the scenes, right? How does the transformer model actually work to give you the answer? And having some of that grasp of the basics of how AI works, I think is very helpful for you in sort of like being discerning in figuring out like which are the AI teams that are the most interesting and most exciting. So I think these are the sort of like two places I'll recommend for anyone looking to learn more about like crypto AI.
Yep. And plus, subscribe to Chain of Thoughts, your newsletter of AI. I don't know if
for sure.
I don't know if you invest in any of the AI projects we just talked about, but if audience or anyone wants to invest in crypto AI, whether it's a specific projects or crypto AI in general, what would be the things that they need to look out for, like weak tokenomics or lack of like product market fits, or just no moats for their product? What do you recommend?
So I think there are a few things that I would say are important factors, at least in my own investment sort of like process. I think firstly is to understand what the team is actually building, right? Are they building an AI agent? Are they building an infrastructure for AI inference? And once you understand what the product is doing, then you can take a point of view on how big the market size for this is going to be if this were to play out. And I think you only want to invest in projects that are building something that has a very sort of like big, almost infinite sort of like market size. And you don't want to be like in projects that have, even if it takes off, like the total addressable market for this is like very limited. So for example, like teams that are building like just a chat bot that uses an LLM and they're selling it as a crypto AI project, I wouldn't be too excited about those things because they don't really have any like sustainable modes. They don't have any like real substantial technology that prevents others from sort of like copying them. And so I think that's one thing to sort of actually keep in mind. What is a product and what's that market size? I think the other thing is that because like crypto AI is such a new space, and I see that people are just sort of like trying to figure this out, you also want to invest in the team, right? So the people who are actually building, who's actually the founders, what are how are they like, right? Are they very smart people? Do they have a certain expertise and insight in the space that other people do not have? Do they have very strong backgrounds? I think that's a very good filter as well, because I would say that many of like what people are trying to build in the space, what eventually sort of like sticks and works could be quite different from what their initial vision was. And you really want to invest in teams that have shown that they are able to adapt to the environment very quickly, because AI is changing extremely quickly. You could have like OpenAI drop a new feature or a new AI model like tomorrow, and suddenly 100 startups are just out of business because OpenAI has just eaten their entire lunch, right? So you have to have teams that are able to move fast, adapt very quickly to the space, and will just sort of like find the right answer like over time. So, and then I think finally, of course, I think tokenomics are very important. I feel like understanding whether a tokenomic design is relatively sustainable over a long run versus a design that's very predatory and very much focused on giving all the value to like VCs and the team. I think being able to sort of like differentiate that and understand where it can be more favorable for you, I think is something that's also important to sort of like look at.
Yeah, definitely. I always thought that investing in crypto project in general is just like investing in like startups, right? And for startups, the team is the core. Like you're basically investing in the team, and they promise you the future, they're saying. So I think the alpha will be looking at the interviews that people conduct with the funders and try to understand when they talk, are they smart people? What's their view into the crypto market? What are their strategies into like actually building up a product that can launch and scale? So those are the few things I think it's important, but people don't usually do. Just looking at the
I totally agree with you. Yeah, I totally agree with you, because like there's a lot of very good like video interviews and podcasts and Twitter spaces that are out there, but most people don't take the time and effort to actually go through them, listen to them. And I think they're missing a lot of like these like nuances and insights that actually come from these like sources of information as well. So I think you're totally right there.
Yeah. And give us more about what you do, like your chain of thoughts. This is the time you kind of talk about your work. Where can they find more? Where can they subscribe to your channel, or what do you do?
Yeah, for sure. So I run Chain of Thought, and you basically can go to chainofthought.xyz. And basically, if you just put in your email address, you get all of our research that's sent to you. We make all of our research on crypto AI for free. So basically, really the goal is to just help everybody learn as much as possible and let us ride this sort of like crypto AI wave like together. So I think that's the sort of like best place to get started. I also run a weekly newsletter that basically covers and summarizes all the most important like developments within the crypto AI space that we send out every Friday. So that's also available at chainofthought.xyz. So I think if you just go there and subscribe, you probably get all the best and latest research from us that's free of charge. I'm very active on Twitter. I'm at like 0x Prismatic. You can find me, you can drop me a DM. I'm always happy to chat more if you have like certain ideas or you just want to discuss about like the crypto AI space in general. I'm always, it's a topic that's very close to my heart, something I cannot stop like sort of like talking about. So yeah, I think these will be probably the two best places to sort of like
we'll put those
find
information.
And learn more about crypto AI.
Yeah, we'll put those information in the video description so people can just kind of follow you on Twitter and subscribe to your newsletter. All right, I think we're at time, but final questions for me, just out of curiosity, can you give us 3 projects you think you will be doing really well in 3 years, in 5 years, and just kind of this is a fun kind of prediction game. What do you think?
And I guess, are you referring to like token price?
I'm not talking about token. I'm not talking about token. I don't like to speculate about token price, but give me actual projects or sectors if you want.
Okay, yeah, none of this is financial advice for sure.
Yeah.
Right? And but I think like a few things that are interesting to me, if I have to say like 3 things, like one is 100%, I think it's Bittensor. I think that's something that is probably has soaked up the greatest like mind share within the crypto AI space. And I think something is pretty cool is going to come out of that. I think second would be like Near protocol. Near is layer 1 network that has been around for quite a while. And it's always had pretty good tech. It's just that it's never been able to find the right narrative around this, and and that's why people are having gravitated to Solana, to Sui, and all these other layer 1 networks. But I think Near has started to shift a lot of its positioning and focus to be on AI specifically. And I think if they are able to really be that network where crypto AI projects want to build on, I think that will give them a lot of like very interesting like catalysts and tailwinds coming up. I'm excited to sort of like see that. Let me see. I think like one more that maybe I haven't mentioned yet. This is a sort of like smaller like project right now, and it's pretty much still in, I would say, stealth. But I've actually talked to the team a fair bit. I can't say too much about it, but I think it's worth for people to follow along their journey. It's called Mira Network. MIR network. They are building, it's a very smart team. They are building like tools around like workflows and on things that make the AI developer experience much better and much more important. And I can say that they are actually building something very cool that will probably be launching in the coming months or so. So I think it's worth sort of paying attention to them.
All right. Thanks for sharing that. I will be texting you about your performance after 3 years. We'll take Let's see if you're right.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. All right. With that, let's conclude this interview. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. Really enjoyed this conversation and hope everyone sort of like took something away from this. See you all.